Good evening, everybody. Yeah, so I was not the supposed presenter, so I'm filling in for Nicola. But yeah, so we just want to discuss. I think, of course, data is becoming a big problem. I think for everybody, as our microscopes are able to do more. We're sitting with a lot more data, and that we need to handle. But another thing, or if we are starting to talk about the big data and how to handle them and all the different software that's out there, the one question that came to mind as well for me is, it's great to have this big data, but do the students actually know what they're looking at or what they're looking for in that sense? I have a few students, so I manage the histology lab as well at the university, and they have these pictures, but they don't really know what they're looking for. And I think that's the other question that if we go into image analysis and all the different the software that's are available. I mean, they're great. You have ImageJ, you have QPath and Cell Profiler, all the free software packages. And of course, you have the companies that also provide the software um, for us as well. But yeah, so that for me is, there is big databases, and how can you make your data, yes, make sense to you, but also make sense to other people as well, so that they can reproduce what you have been doing. It's easy to, if you're a very good Python writer, and I know a lot of students are getting way ahead of me even in that sense, that they know and learn these scripts and managing data on, I think, some on university level now, in undergrad. And you know yeah, if what can they get out of the data is important, but do they actually know also what it means? And yeah, so like Lisa said, we about the data storage, about the NAS and everything. So even, I mean, Stellenbosch University has now become aware of the big data problem and data being lost when students leave. So they have started implementing, having each department having a storage unit for the data, not only microscopy, but any data that is produced, so that you can go back and get your get data. If someone leaves, you know where it is. So yeah, I don't really have, I mean, for me, it's, what does everybody else, how do they handle data? How do you see where it's going? Is there more workshops? I know there's a lot of workshops done on ImageJ through GBI and SABI. Um, is that sort of more training that is needed as well? Or yeah, so that's sort of where I want to leave the discussion of, is, what is out there and what do we need to do? Yeah. Anyone online? Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I'll bite. Chantal, I think you've um, excellently articulated the barrier at which most of us are being squished up against, with a whole bunch of data and users coming behind us. And um, it, I think training is a massive need. I think the hard part with training is finding, identifying people with the skills and the time to provide the training. Because I get the impression locally that most of us are not in that situation, especially looking at, I mean, um, more and more labs around the world, I go visit them and they're implementing an Amera instance. Great idea. The infrastructure required to do that, you need a staff to manage it, you need your IT department on board, you you need people to know how to use it. That requires work. Like the open source tools are amazing, and I think most people, aside from the low cost, get directed to them also because there's a bunch of resources online. So I can give someone a whirlwind tour and introduce them to Fiji. If they really want, I can teach them how to write a macro, at least at the basics. I can teach them the basics. Anything more than that, I know that there are a whole bunch of people out there and forums that I can direct them to, because that's where the barrier of my abilities are. I wouldn't know where to start with someone with Python except for them to tell them to go Google.
Yeah, I think also for me, what I realized or starting to realize with the students is I need to catch up with them as well. Because they are sometimes, I mean, there was one honor student at the beginning of the year that I was afraid knows more about the stuff than I do. And now I need to teach them. So I think, yes, it's good for students to know how to do it, but I think the staff or the core facilities that need to show them that those people are getting a little bit behind for me, I feel, in terms of that type of tools that are available.
I've the same for a while. About 3 years ago, I realized I don't know how to analyze. People's coming to me to ask, their supervisors asked, how do they analyze this? And I realized I used to send data just away and students figure it out. So yes, core facilities managers or core facility staff need to have a basic idea. But the other question is, should we know everything from sample prep of all of these various samples, imaging the samples in different systems, etc., and know all the software and how to use it sufficiently, etc., because in South Africa, we have a very limited amount of staff who's really microscopists. Overseas, there's usually a team. A core facility exists or is usually a team, and often the data analysts are not biologists. They are computer scientists, they are engineers. They learn their biology by, this is the image, what is this? Oh, this is a nucleus, oh, this is a neuron networks, etc. So I think that's a downside. We didn't talk about it when we talked, but we really have a small cohort of staff that's supposed to know everything, and I don't know that's so healthy. It's not possible in today's day to stay on board with everything and all the developments.
Thanks, Lisa. These are good, really important points. So for me, it's three things that come up. The one is, of course, the big data issue, that it's not seen. It's again a communication thing, that we actually need a solution for being able to handle big data and store big data and so forth. The second thing is the analysis. And this is where I see SABI really as very important, that we tend to reinvent the analysis approaches. And I see it in my students when students leave and we haven't made sure that that analysis approach was captured appropriately, we start again. And so, for example, so that is where SABI and the website, in terms of methods of analysis, could play a really good role, that we build some of these analysis approaches. And then the third thing I have forgotten. I think it has probably to do with standards in terms of, I mean, there is so much responsibility again in the data analysis. And so that is really, again, on us, and hence on our methods relying and SOPs. And so I really see there SABI again as a powerful role player to say, this has been done here locally and acquired there in this lab, be it Storm, be it, whatever it might be. And we actually have that, we can kind of point students to that, so that we also don't have very keen students that start coding but are not building on what has been kind of well established and published, and we know that this is kind of currently the main approach.
We have one question online. Yeah. You can unmute and then ask your question.
As we have that gap, I just want to add also what I've also started to see is, and it has to do with, Chantelle, what you said, what the students actually maybe not see in the images, I'm starting to see a little bit that I think when we did our work, we did quite a lot with not so much data. Like if we had, I don't know, a handful of good data, we could good images, we did a lot of good analysis. I see now the trend that's why I like really also, Chris, your approach of first analyze and then come back. I see that there's a lot of acquisition and acquisition and acquisition and acquisition, and no diving in, extracting first. Yeah, the aim is not clear, and we say so there is a risk of actually wasteful data acquisition, and we don't have kind of the supervision on that.
So yeah, Chris again. I've got a few comments. Obviously, when we collect data, we see universities struggling. We have issues ourselves. I've got a lot to say. I'll try and keep it really short. The two minor ones on the free stuff. I gave a talk today, if you weren't here, about if you search for CZI shrink, there's this tool that can shrink Zeiss data down if you've got an old backlog, and you can contact me about it. We've also got that Arevis Cloud for AI, where you can get, as a student, you can get some free machine learning. Anyway, that's not the main thing I wanted to say. We come up against this issue, but in some ways, this is an issue where for training, there's a lot of free material and a lot of courses you can tag onto and a lot of online stuff. So in some senses, to learn this, if you look around for courses or YouTube videos, a lot of the material already exists. It's quite a cheap, free way of getting into it. The second thing, now, ideally, when people are forced to do the image analysis before they come back, some universities now are trying to get staff to do that. So in a nice core facility where you have like 4 staff, isn't that a luxury? They would have one of those just as an image analysis person these days. But when you're thinking, I can't possibly afford an imaging analysis person, could you afford 20% of one? And then on Monday they work for you, and on Tuesday they work for someone else, and Thursday, etc. Because they don't need to go to Joburg to process data from Joburg. That's the beauty of digital. So you could potentially have one staff member, and you could scale according to needs and really split the costs of those people. Just as a thought. The second thing, internally, we have a number of image polishers, who tidy images after data, and they don't always know the best approach. So internal to Zeiss, I'm not opening this up, but suggesting it's a thing. They get together once, one afternoon a month, and they call it like the beer hour. And what they do is they say to people, bring problems or solutions. And so all they do is they go, oh, someone came to me and said, how do I process this? And they spend 10 minutes showing how they solved the problem. So I just put the script together and did this and did this. And they share, or if someone has an issue, they might even we do it on Teams, and they just upload in advance. Here's a 100 megabyte image. I'm trying to count this, and I've no idea how to do it. And the others would have a look, and they would swap notes. So you could build a community, whether you do it once a month, once every 3 months. It could be very low effort, but whoever's the best guy in image J in your place, get him into that group. And what's always fascinating, I'm not the best guy in that meeting, but whenever I join, you get the person who's been doing it for 5 years going, oh, I'm trying to do this deep machine learning, blah, blah, blah. And the person who's been doing it for 30 years going, yeah, you're overthinking it. You can just use this really old script, and you get the same numbers, give or take. It's good enough. But yeah, anyway, just 2 thoughts of how you could potentially grow this low effort, low time, and scale as you need it.
Right. Yeah, I like the idea for, especially for a core facility having, you get, on your booking system, you can be booked out for an hour to help with image analysis or something like that. Yeah. Yeah, no. If we do have that, if you can, yeah, that's a good idea. Sorry, yeah, online, Divishna, you can ask your question.
Hi, sorry. No, I just wanted to go back to the whole data, the problem of data recording. And it's the same thing that I find that students come with some experiments they need to do, and then it's like they are trying to reinvent something that's quite established. So if you could have some sort of standardization on how to record the data, what specific fields that they need to record it, that would be nice. So that would be a nice thing for SABI to look at in terms of the system of data recording for even for just standard protocols.
Yeah. I think also the one thing that popped in my head now is I think we're not there yet in explaining how we do this stuff in articles. I think it's more like, oh, I use ImageJ, and then we go on. I think if we start saying, I used ImageJ and I did this, 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 and this, or in my supplementary, you can see what I did, that I think will also start helping people, not going to reinvent the wheel to do exactly the same thing.
I'm going to answer on both the last few comments. The one about an image analyst in a core facility. It depends a lot on the on the core facilities model, because it's very difficult to get an analysis workflow done in an hour. So often it's 6 hours, 10 hours. You don't often know how long it's going to take to figure out what to do, teach the machine learning algorithm, etc. So it's very hard to charge money for your time. So there has to be some sort of a guideline as to how do you charge a person's, because especially if you have to recover that person's cost as a salary cost, how do you recover that salary cost? And then I want to comment on the other is the comment that Devisha said. SABI has exactly that aim. That's why we actually have a page on the website which is very, very it's empty, almost empty, that we really, really want to fill that page on the website with various protocols. If it's a standard protocol that's really, that you feel like you shouldn't come again and again and again and again for the same type of thing, we need to have a protocol. We should have it on the website so that you can say, there's the link, go look at the link first and then you come to discuss it with me. That kind of thing is exactly what we wanted to do. It's just a matter of we need to get everyone's buy-in who are working with these standard protocols to send it, put it on the website so that we can start sharing those protocols. Thanks.
Thanks, Lisa. Thank you for that direction. But also, what would be nice is if on the web page, people can add standard protocols, which is great. But also, what is the minimum essential information that they can put in? Like exactly what was said earlier. That, for example, in papers, there's we used ImageJ. And we did maybe one or two details, but maybe a bit more like a minimum essential, like magnification or anything that would define something that would be helpful and reproducible to be carried out.
Just to answer Devisha, yes, Devisha, that's a great great suggestion. I think it would be great if you and I can talk at some point, please. Okay.
I have 3 points from various things. I'll try to get through them really quickly. One is, if you haven't already, Lisa, and SABI in general, it might be worth looking into linking that protocols page to an instance on protocols.io, because that's literally where people can, you can pay for something, but it's free. And the main distinction between if you're using the paid or the free version of protocols.io is that if it's free, you're forced to make your protocols public, which is what you want to do. So there's that, and it's kind of like the protocols version of GitHub. So people can, if they use protocols.io, fork it or like make their own version of it, and then it can adapt. And when they want to make it public, it can. And that can be a massive networked resource that has, I think, gained more traction around the world in the last few years. I think there's scope for us to, and I know I say this a lot in the context of ABEC, and I mean, South Africa is part of Africa too, to learn from what's been done already around the world. So that question of best practices or what's minimum essential information, there are consortia around the world that have looked at this in terms of, not in terms of protocols, but reporting, Quarepilimi. I also, having been involved in Quarepilimi, I know that the work that comes out of them is excellent, but it's experts from around the world. It's decisions by consortium, which often means their outputs can be hard to digest. This might be something that a gap that SABI could fill and go, according to best recommendations from Quarepilimi, this is what you should be putting into your paper's method section or your thesis method section to meet best standards. That's just a thing. Third one, sorry, I'm not as quick as I was trying to be, with regards to staffing. It is interesting because more and more around the world, I think facilities do have data analysts built into them. And I think it's a sign of the times. 10 years ago, you didn't need one necessarily. And the thing is, someone asked a question of like, how are we meant to be an expert in sample prep and acquisition and data handling and analysis? 10 years ago we could. It's much harder to now. The CRIC has an interesting model in terms of billing, that they don't bill per hour, they bill per project, and they do a scale, and a project can be a full project or a piece of something, and they basically, based on consultation, say this is going to be small, medium, or large. And I think small is, this is going to take, I think, about half a week's worth of my time. A medium will be 2 weeks worth of my time. A large is, this is a month plus. And Bill sort of scaled on that with the agreement of, when we say this is a small project, this is what you've asked for, this is what I agree to deliver. Because otherwise you get scope creep of, oh, can't you also just, what about this? And oh, here's just an extra acquisition, like data set that we want to add to it. Like, the agreement was this. Otherwise it becomes the next, this was small, now it's large. I don't know how you build, if you're expected to do full salary cost recovery into that. I think that's still quite hard to do, but maybe it's a model, maybe with someone decentralized or someone working part-time, maybe it's feasible that way.